All right, YouTube, we got another reaction video for you. Today we're talking about tariffs, man. What's really going on? I mean, what does this all mean, man? I mean, could somebody explain it? But listen, this is what we're gonna try to do in this reaction video. This is Working Class Rich, and today we're talking about tariffs, man. Let's go.
To anyone confused about the tariff stuff, I'll explain it right now.
All right, in this episode, we're talking about tariffs. I said tariffs. Things that many of us don't know what it is, or how it works, But I gathered a couple of TikTok videos, man, from some people who have some serious insight on this subject to help explain to many of us out there that's got bits and pieces of information what tariffs are, how do they work, how are they going to affect us, as working class people? Because many times, we see the news and they give us the headlines, but what I'm aspiring to do is give you the details. Now, no matter how you voted, which side you're on, these tariffs going to affect us all. So these videos I'm showing you, they're for educational purpose, they're for entertainment, but it's to get us aware of what's going on in the news right now, what is about to hit, how it's going to affect our lives, and maybe the adjustments that we need to consider making, because tariffs are at our front door. You ready, YouTube? Let's check this out.
China sharply raised the stakes overnight in President Trump's trade war after he increased U.S. tariffs on Chinese products to 145% yesterday. Now, China's president is hitting back, increasing Beijing's 84% tariff on U.S. goods to 125% starting tomorrow. We are waiting to see the impact on Wall Street today, which took another beating yesterday.
At the same time, President Trump touted the historic market surge stemming from his pause on reciprocal tariffs.
We had a big day yesterday. There'll always be transition difficulty.
U.S. stocks were tumbling, wiping out a third of Wednesday's gains. But the president remained optimistic about new trade agreements on the horizon.
Everybody wants to come and make a deal.
The White House says the U.S. and
Tariff update for the day, April 16th. The U.S. announced total tariffs on China, causing major confusion with an initial number of 245%. The White House later clarified that the new tariffs reach 145%, with 245% representing the total cumulative rate from past administrations. Meanwhile, the state of California has begun a lawsuit against the Trump administration, claiming that the new tariffs disproportionately affect its major manufacturing economy. The World Trade Organization has issued a warning, saying that the tariffs could reverse global trade, and cited concerns over the deepening economic split between the U.S. and China. Trade between these two countries is now projected to drop up to 91%.
Breaking overnight, tariffs on China could jump as high as 245%. A White House fact sheet on Wednesday says the new hike is in response to China's retaliatory tariff of 125%. China has said it would not increase tariffs again, even if the United States does, posting this morning, quote, China remains committed to joining hands, not throwing punches. President Trump also hinting that phones and electronics may not be exempt from tariffs after all. Small imports will also be tariffed starting May 2nd. The president closing a loophole that had allowed imports less than $800 to be tariff exempt.
Chinese producers are all over social media right now, and they're exposing just who is targeted by Trump's tariffs. And it's not the American consumers, and it's not the Chinese producers. It's actually our international corporations who have sold out American prosperity for their own profits. Let me illustrate. Let's use this example, Nike. Now, these are fictitious numbers, just for example. But let's say that Nike buys shoes from this company that manufactures Nike shoes for $10 a Nike shoe, which isn't very far off. Nike turns around and sells that shoe at retail for $100. Here's the interesting part about tariffs. You're not paying tariffs on the retail price. This is not a tax in the classic sense. The way the economists who are bought and paid for are trying to conflate it as. It is a tax on the import. This means with a 25% tariff, Nike's going to have to pay $2.50 to the US government every time it imports a Nike shoe at $10. So this $2.50 gets remitted to the American government, to American citizens. Now Nike's cost $10 for the shoe, $2.50 for the import tax, This means they're netting $87 per shoe. Now that's net, not profit. There are going to be other costs that are going to have to come from that. But you can see that the increase in cost is $2.50. So let's say that Nike passes the entire cost onto the consumer, even a little more just because of the fear of tariffs. $103 a shoe now. That is the impact of a 25% tariff. So what the Chinese producers on TikTok are saying, instead of the American consumer buying it for $103, or let's just say that the company Nike eats all $2.50 of the tariff and still sells it for $100, you're way better off over here, paying directly to China, including the tariff, $12.50 a shoe plus shipping. So as you can see, the tariffs are not meant to hurt consumers. They're not meant to hurt China. They don't really affect China at all. They're meant to protect American industry. They're meant to protect Americans from their corporations who will sell them out for a profit. So if you look hard, you'll notice that the people who are screaming about how bad tariffs are for consumers, it's these companies right here. It's Wall Street. It's all the investors in these companies. Because
Now listen, when I heard those first 3 clips that I just played, man, I don't know about you, it's just me, but that took me all the way back to high school, middle school, and I'm feeling like, was I tired that day at school? You know what I'm saying? What did I miss a few steps? Because they are showing me something that it's like, I know I heard this before, but I just don't know where. But anyway, let's keep going.
How tariffs work in 60 seconds. So here we have John, and John is going to buy his favorite shirt at Costco. Now, normally he pays $5, but this week he notices that it's actually $7. And so he says, Costco, why is the same shirt cost $2 extra? And they said, well, John, we used to import this shirt from Mexico and it only cost us $3 to make. So we can sell it for $5 and make a $2 profit. But your government, all of a sudden, they want to charge us a $2 tariff for every shirt that we import in. So if I sell it to you for $5, I don't make any money. That's why I have to charge you $7. And that's when John goes to the government. It's like, hey, why'd you charge them a tariff if you knew it was going to come back to us? And they said, John, well, we were hoping that they would actually just build factories in the US so they could bypass the tariff. And what they was going to do is still going to make the shirt a little bit more expensive, but now we're going to have more jobs and it's going to help boost the economy. And that's how tariffs work. So obviously the government, they want to have these companies stop importing and actually build in America to boost the economy. But what happens sometimes is those companies just say, hey, we're going to pass the cost to people like you, John. And only time will tell if it actually works or if it backfires. Now, if you like this video...
Hey, Professor, what's a tariff? It's just a tax on a good from another country. Well, why do it? Taxes make governments money. Tariffs are how our government used to make most of its money. Another country has to pay a tax, so what? That's their problem. A toothpaste company suddenly has to pay 20% more to import, so they raise their prices 20%. Well, if they raise their prices, I'll just buy domestic. That's good. Yeah, we can use our tariffs to grow our own industries, but also... that can happen. Okay, so it's bad. Or everyone at our toothpaste factory got a 19% raise. Okay, it's good again. But it's coming out of your wallet. Bad again. Maybe the toothpaste company would go out of business at that old price. But now they'll stay in business and can eventually lower costs so they can sell at that original pre-tariff price. Could be good. But then other countries can retaliate with their own tariffs, causing our businesses to lose business. Professor, is it good or bad? It's terrific. Terrific.
How do tariffs work and why is Trump using them? These are 2 important questions, so let's answer them. At their most basic, tariffs are import taxes, and those import taxes are paid by the American company importing the product. So here's an example. If I'm an American company and I buy my product from Canada for $100, but now there's a 25% tariff, it's going to cost me $125 to get it from Canada to America for me to sell. Now, why does this matter to you? Let's say I used to sell that product that cost me $100 to you for $125. Now, if I do the same thing, it will give me $0 in profit. So I have to raise my price on you for the business to be able to function the same way as it was before. So that is why you're going to see higher prices. So here's the big question. Why is Trump doing this? There are 2 primary reasons. Reason number 1 is leverage. Trump is trying to use these tariffs as leverage to get Mexico and Canada to negotiate with the US on issues that we don't see eye to eye on, like border policies. And I'm sure you have have the question of why do these other countries care if it's American companies that are paying the import tax? It's a good question, and it's a pretty simple answer. American companies that rely on countries like Mexico and Canada to provide their products will be less inclined to use those countries as their provider now that they carry a big tariff. So theoretically, it would damage businesses in these other countries because they would lose American business. But the risk of this move, which we've already seen, is that the countries we place tariffs on us right back, and then everything costs more for everyone. And this feeds into reason number 2 why Trump is doing this. Reason number 2 is trying to incentivize companies to buy American. And it's an admirable goal that I think a lot of us can get behind in theory, but this is an idea that works much better on paper than in reality. This will pose a massive long-term cost problem because, as we know, buying American is more expensive than buying from foreign countries. And American labor is vastly more expensive than foreign labor. Also, there are a wide array of products that we don't make in America very much, like agricultural products that just don't grow very well here. And there are many industries where we just don't currently have the infrastructure to meet the demand of the market to build it all in America. Building that infrastructure for American companies is going to be very expensive, and they're also going to pass that cost on to you. So whether it's tariffs, or them using American labor instead of foreign labor, or just the cost to build infrastructure, stuff is going to be more expensive. So yes, theoretically we can build an American economy, but that economy is going to be products that are unquestionably more expensive, not just in the short term, but forever. So in a nutshell, short term, higher prices. Long term, higher prices. That's the Trump economy.
Here's how Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent plans to save the US economy, explained in under 2 minutes. This is your tax revenues of the United States of America. It's about 17% of GDP. The biggest spending in the United States goes to welfare. This is closely followed by Medicaid. And then after that, we've got defense, we've got interest payments on debt. As you can see, there is a big shortage of revenues compared with your costs. And that is especially because the interest on the debt is getting bigger all the time. When you spend more than your revenues, that is called a budget deficit. He said, here's my 4 plans to fix the budget deficit and this unsustainable debt path that we're on. Number 1, we have to grow the economy. Now, you don't grow an economy by increasing taxes. No, we've got to cut taxes. One of these disappears straight away. The only way to increase your revenues when you're cutting taxes is to get the economy bigger, because this is a percentage of GDP. So bigger GDP equals a higher real number. Secondly, we've got to cut interest rates. That makes the debt interest payment in the future more sustainable. Then co-president Musk comes into play. You got to cut the spending, right? You got to sack all those consultants. You've got to start laying off public sector workers, but that's all right because you're growing the economy. Therefore, there's more private sector jobs to take up the slack. So unemployment rate doesn't go up. Unemployment not going higher means that interest rates can go down. Next, you slap a load of tariffs on foreign countries that aren't paying their fair share, and therefore you start to build this revenue side. Now remember, the two don't have to equal each other. Traditionally, tax revenues are about 18% of GDP, and spending in most Western economies is around about 22%. Why can governments spend 4% more as a percentage of GDP than they take in tax and revenues? Well, it's down to GDP growth and inflation. This is where inflation is a government's friend. It might not help you with the cost of your groceries, but it does mean over time, if you manage to grow your economy by 2% a year through productivity gains or through demographics, then stick 2% inflation on top of that, meaning you get real GDP growth of 2% and you get nominal GDP growth of 4%. That is the difference between your tax revenues of 18 and your spending of 22. Now, the next thing you do to help the economy grow is deregulate the banks. If banks are lending more, companies can borrow, they can hire more staff, and they can expand their profits. So there is some additional tax revenue from that corporation tax. Therefore, as you manage to grow the economy and get that GDP growth, as you cut interest payments, you cut a little bit out of defense, and you get rid of a lot of consultants, and you start to charge some of your friends some tariffs, slowly you build the economy, you get economic growth going up again, and you've got your balanced budget. This is how Scott Bessent plans to save the US economy.
Boy, listen, you can already tell that there is a lot of details and information that's going on about these tariffs, even though when you look at the news and different other type of propaganda, they only show American and China dynamics. But listen, those tariffs have a lot to do with other countries that many people have not even considered. You know, we just look at the bold-faced headings that people will share, and no matter how you feel about it, voted about it, or whatever, that's not the argument. The argument is this right here is happening, and it's a lot of details involved, and there's many other things you need to consider, but I believe that most Americans have what it takes to ride this thing out, rise above it. You know, I believe that we do, but it's good to have information. But listen, here are some from the aspect that many times the news is not saying. You know, so check this out.
You mean to tell me China put 67% tariffs on American goods while we only put 34%? You mean to tell me that all these countries are just ripping the United States off? Now, this graph may seem so crazy that it can't be true. And that's because it's not true. The White House released this chart saying that Trump is implementing reciprocal tariffs, meaning he's putting tariffs on countries at the same rate that they put them on us. These tariffs, these values of tariffs that other countries put on us are not actually tariffs that they put on imported goods. What the White House did, and they have admitted this, these figures are actually our trade deficit with another country divided by the imports. The source is right there. So I'm going to use an example to make this easier to understand because not everybody has hours in their day to figure out what's going on with American trade. The Trump administration has made the claim that Madagascar has a 93% tariff on American goods going into their country. But since we now know, and this has been confirmed by the White House, that 93% number is really just our trade deficit divided by imports, that's not the case. So what's happening in Madagascar? Well, Madagascar is a huge exporter of vanilla and spices. So as the richest country in the world, we're going to buy a lot of vanilla and spices from Madagascar. Now, Madagascar also happens to be very poor. So what that means is that we are buying more from Madagascar than they are buying from us. That is called a trade deficit, and we're going to be in a lot of trade deficits with other countries, especially smaller ones, because we're the richest country in the world. So what the Trump administration just said is that they're putting tariffs on those countries simply because we are in a trade deficit with them, because in order to get to that 93% number, they use the trade deficit divided by the imports. So the next time somebody says Trump is instituting reciprocal tariffs, just know these aren't actually reciprocal. Because the tariffs that he's claiming these other countries are charging us aren't even tariffs. They're just trade deficits. Tariffs are a fee that businesses pay to their country on imported goods from other countries.
To explain to you reciprocal tariffs. So here's China, they make this car. Here's the USA, they make this car. In the United States, the car is being made in that country. The car sells for $10,000. They come to the conclusion that they also want to sell that car in the Chinese market so they can open themselves up to make more money, sell more cars. So the USA is going to export that car into China for it to be sold. Now China says, okay, USA, we don't mind selling your car in China, but we are going to place a tariff on it because you didn't build it in China. So you want to bring it in and sell it here, there's going to be a tax or a tariff. So let's say in this situation, China places a 60% tax or tariff on car imports from the United States. So if this car costed $10,000 for the consumer in America, immediately once it gets to China, it's going to cost $16,000, right? Because that's 60% more than $10,000. Now, in China, they're selling a similar car for $10,000. So what problem arises? This American-made car being exported to China is not going to compete very well with a similar car that's selling at 60% cheaper. The Chinese-made car is selling for $10,000. Meanwhile, the United States-made car is selling for $16,000 because of this tariff. So United States says, well, you know what? That's your decision. But if you're going to play that game, China, when you come and try to sell your car that's supposed to be worth $10,000 in the United States, we're also going to place a tariff on it. Okay, so as a reciprocal tariff, the United States would also place a 60% tariff on those Chinese cars being imported. Now, in this perfect dream scenario, this would obviously almost cancel these out and just make us at a trade equilibrium. This isn't the case in real life, but this is a very basic example of what reciprocal tariffs are. If you want to know why it's not as easy as this situation right here, then stay tuned for part 2.
An executive order has already been signed that starting on May 1st, that $800 exemption will end. Now you have to pay a 30% tariff or $25 per item, whichever is higher.
If you've ever bought something from Shein, Temu, or Amazon Haul, chances are you've benefited from something called the de minimis exemption. The exemption allows packages valued at under $800 to enter the United States duty-free. But as part of an escalating trade war with China, President Trump signed an executive order ending the de minimis exemption specifically on packages from China and Hong Kong. It's slated to end May 2nd. In response, Hong Kong's postal service has stopped package service to the US, and Shein and Temu have announced they will raise prices in the US starting April 25th, citing increased operating expenses. To discuss what this means for American consumers,
this is what I don't understand. The reciprocal tariffs going into place April 2nd, which means if you're tariffing our cars 100%, we're going to tariff your cars 100%. Well, you're already selling the cars in the United States or whatever the product may be, French wine or whatever, Grey Goose vodka like I drink, right? That comes from France. That's going to go. So what France has to do is they have to take all their tariffs off on us. So there's no change in prices. The only change is we get now an opportunity to export our manufactured goods into France and Europe and other countries because this is not a punitive tariff. This is meant to eliminate the tariffs on our goods going in. This is why these brain-dead liberals and Republicans don't even understand what this means. It is so infuriating for protectionists like me that has studied this my whole life, that understands it, to hear the dribble that's going on television. You heard it last night with Laura Ingraham badgering President Trump over this. Like, you don't have a clue, Laura. You have no understanding of what a tariff is and the purpose of it is and why it didn't raise prices the last time, and it's not going to raise prices again. What it's going to do is get our manufacturing back in. People start opening up plants over and over time. We get our sovereignty back and we create better jobs, better paying jobs so people can actually buy the goods. Or the reciprocal tariffs are designed to eliminate tariffs. Because if you're France, let's just take an example. This is how stupid this is. If you're France and you're exporting Grey Goose vodka into the United States, I'm using that example because that's my vodka of choice when it's available. You're exporting Grey Goose and people like me are buying it and there's no tariff on it. So it's whatever it is, $35, right? We try to export Tito's, American-made vodka made for potato. It's not my choice. I don't touch it. I like vodka made from wheat, but that's my choice. A lot of people drink Tito's, right? So the U.S. wants to, the manufacturers of Tito's, they want to export their vodka into France and European countries. Well, there's a 100% tariff on that. So it becomes price prohibitive. You're not going to pay double for Tito's in France what you could pay for Grey Goose, which to me happens to be better, but you're not going to do that. So the manufacturing doesn't happen. The Grey Goose doesn't get there. Does that make sense? Now, if you put a reciprocal tariff on there, all of a sudden, I'm not going to buy Grey Goose at $70. I buy it at $35. I'm not going to buy it at $70. I'm going to switch over to a U.S.-made vodka if they keep the tariff. So then their sales collapse. Just follow me on this. So the France sales collapse. So what is France going to do? They have two choices, right? Raise the tariff more on Tito's, which they would never do. That makes no sense. Or they'll eliminate their tariff on U.S. vodka going in there to zero, and then our tariff on French vodka, Grey Goose, would go down to zero. So it's zero now. It stays at zero. The 100% tariff on our manufactured goods exported to France, which was 100%, goes to zero. The makers of Tito's now have a new market to export their product to, which is now could be purchased by French or European buyers, which then creates more jobs making Tito's vodka. This is what they're meant to do. And the fact that these gangster bankers on Wall Street and bedwetters can't understand this, and shame on Laura Ingraham last night, who doesn't have a freaking clue about what is going on, badgering the president on this, was absolutely.
So do you want to know the part that they're not telling you about tariffs? Here's the reality that nobody's talking about. Nobody. This lighter costs $25 in America to buy an American-made product, okay? China makes one, sells it for $20 here in America. Out of that $20, $5 goes to whoever in America sells it. $15 of it goes back to China. You buy the $25 one in America, all $25 stays in America. So now we want to say, let's balance this out, and we're going to put a 50% tariff on Chinese goods. Now this lighter costs $30 to sell in the United States. Now you have the US made one at $25. It is cheaper. It's more expensive in the big picture, I get it. But it's now cheaper, so people are going to buy the American made one. 100% of the $25 that you spend stays in America, stays here. The demand increases for that business has to hire employees. When many businesses hire employees, that creates a supply shortage of employees, which make wages go up. Is this more expensive for the consumer in the short term? Yes, but you're getting a better product. You're getting a better product for your money, and the money is staying local. Okay, you're not funding these other countries and their businesses. That is the purpose behind all of this. Will we have a recession? Yes. Will prices go up in the short term? Yes. But the lagging effect is all of that money now stays here with us. It's not leaving the country, which gives us more money in the United States to go around for everybody. Of course, every nation in the world is going to say, we're being bad neighbors and bad business partners. Well, of course, we've made them rich. And now we as a people are suffering. We want our money back. Why is that so hard? It's not ideal, but it works and it makes sense. And I'm not a pro-Trumper at all, but I believe in it. I'm a business owner. I know how it works.
All right, everybody, listen. This is the wrap up right now. Thank you for staying with me. It's about a 30-minute long video, a little bit, maybe over 30 minutes. Thank you for hanging out. This is, please, listen, I want to state this, please. Do your research. This is for entertainment and educational purposes, but I want you to do your own research, get the information, because in these particular TikTok videos that I chose were TikTok videos that were simple for me to understand. So I only picked the ones that I knew that I understood what these people were talking about. I just didn't want to pass videos off. I don't like doing it. If I understand it, I feel like that I can help you to understand it. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for hanging out with me during this time. This is Working Class Rich. My name is Starsky the Berry. Hey, listen, these reaction videos are fun now that I started doing and kind of going in this direction. They are totally fun. So listen, if you like this vibe, do me a favor, subscribe. I'm gonna be doing more of this. I'm gonna be in this vein for a minute because I feel like this is a good way for me to get my point of view across to you, and for you to get to know me, and for me to get to know you as my subscribers, right? So listen, till next time, always understand that you got to understand and learn what game you're playing in life, because that's the only way to beat the game. You got to learn it to one day beat it. So hey, that's my that's my closer. I'm trying that out. Tell me in the comments what you think. Was that a good closer or not? But we're talking about tariffs. That is something that is happening. It's going on. It's affecting the economy. It's affecting your money. It's affecting your lifestyle. So we need to keep talking like this. But until next time, hey, stay focused. We got this.